Okay, so welcome to today's social system mapping deep dive session for May 16th, 2022. Your hosts today are me, Christine Capper. I think you all know me, and Kara Martiner. You all know her too. But if you are new to this, what this is really, this is a vision about a possibility. So social system mapping is something that we believe can help change groups and communities self-organize more quickly and more wisely. And so part of what we're doing here today is a small piece of the large puzzle of leaning into that possibility and making it a reality. It's a learning opportunity. So it's an opportunity for people who are new to social system mapping to learn more about social system mapping. It's an opportunity for us to learn from each other, how to do it better. And it's also an opportunity for brand new people to share some of their insights, because if you're here with us, you are, I assume, and it's generally true, that you are doing some kind of network weaving work or community building work around some kind of systemic change. And so even if you're not familiar with social system mapping, you've got a lot of insights about those broader topics, which are valuable to us. It's a community of practice and a community of field building. So we are learning together and we are developing this methodology, which is still, we've got the technical pieces of it figured out for the most part, kind of as much as we need, but the social processes of it are something that are still very much emerging and we're learning how to do, and learning that together makes us learn it faster and better. And so social system mapping is sort of at the core vision of what we're doing together, but not all of us are mappers. Some of us are just part of communities or trying to figure out how to use maps or learn from maps or just understand where maps might fit into the universe. But there are lots of ways, there's a growing number of ways to get involved, and we invite you to do that as you are interested. So today's facilitator is Jim Best, who I'm going to hand it off to in just a couple minutes. Jim has been a core member of this community for a long time and has contributed a lot of thinking. And so he's going to share some of his more eggheady thinking with us today, which I think is going to be kind of interesting. And so for today's agenda, Jim, did you want to do the agenda, or do you want me to just sort of whip through it? Did you want to read it?
Yeah, let me jump on with that. This is an egghead agenda. Okay, I got it. There'll be two 20-minute sections. One where I sort of put out this social system mapping theory of change. I'll do it in 2 sections, and we'll have a little bit of content and then some and discussion with you. And then the second 20-minute session is really us in breakouts, thinking more deeply about it, a couple different questions, and that's it. Okay.
And then we'll have a little closing that I've got some invitations to the community. And so if any of you, and one of the invitations has to do with if any of you has a social system map that you've been working with for a while and have a small win or a small success story, I'm going to ask for someone to share a success story as we close. So if you have something like that in your head, you might start thinking about it now. And then just so you know, we design these sessions for the formal part of it to go for an hour. So it goes from the to the top of the next hour, and then everybody who needs to jump off jumps off. But I will stick around. And Jim, will you stick around for an extra half an hour? I can't see him. So if he's—
That's a yes.
Okay, great. So Jim and I and Kara will be here for an extra half an hour. So if you have more questions or you want to dig deeper into some part of the conversation, or you just want to talk to us some more, we invite you to stick around for that extra that optional extra half hour. So let's do a quick, you'll have more time to get to know each other in your breakouts, but let's go ahead and have do some intros in the chat. For starters, your name, your pronoun, your location. And if you'd like, at this point, you could also add a network that you're working with, because we all like to see what each other's working on and discover what kind of cool things are happening out there in the world, in addition to all the horrible things we hear about in the news every day. So we have Colombia and Germany so far. That's great. I love seeing how we have people showing up from all over the world. We have a handful of Californians and Connecticut. Another East Coast, Rhode Island, Alaska, Canada, Californian. I think we've got everybody. Okay, so also, what's one wicked problem that you are trying to address with a network approach? And this doesn't have to be like fully blown, you know, just like a thing you're thinking about or a thing, a network that you're part of is that you're trying to build a network around and use that approach to work on a wicked problem. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment so we can see each other's faces and And welcome, Natalia. I didn't get a chance to, if you would like to just do a quick mic check now, you're welcome to. If you just want to unmute and say hi, feel free to. Don't feel like you have to. This is a good moment for it.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, welcome. Glad you could join us.
Thank you.
Okay. And then, so actually, sharing power, lowering the bar, self-organizing, best strategies, yeah, for buy-in. Okay, and so this is another, if this makes sense to you, what systems are involved with your wicked problem? If that is a question that you can answer and feel like answering, you're invited to in the chat. Is trust a system? No, there's a good question, Cindy. And land, water, agriculture, yeah. Tendency to lurk. These are interesting systems, concepts. Yes, funding. Okay, I'm going to, looks like we have one more person coming in. You can give her a second. And then I'm gonna go to the next slide. Welcome, Leah. If you would like to briefly, quickly unmute and just make sure your mic works. Say hi.
Hi.
Hi, welcome.
Hi,
glad you could join us. Okay, so I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. And can you see my screen?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, this is a community practice. And among the things we do is we have regular, well, 3 Monday mornings a month, we have some kind of session together. So the first Monday of the month, we have a sense-making session. The next one is June 6th. I haven't got the topic landed on yet. The second Monday of the month, we do an on-ramp session, which is where somebody in the community shares one of their social system maps. So that you can, ask them questions about what they've learned and how they did it, and just sort of see one if you don't kind of know what the interface looks like. That's a great second Monday activity, and plus just to get to know other members in the community. Next June, Laura Castelli is going to share the circle-wise map. Reiner, I don't know if you've seen that, but she's in Germany also. The third Monday, we have deep dive conversations where we sort of just dig into something related to social system mapping in some way or another, but it's a more focused conversation. And hopefully the people who show up for deep dives have seen a social system map. If you haven't, you're still, of course, welcome, but we're not going to go and sort of introduce that at this point in time. So some of this might not gel for you as well as if you had seen one. Kara has been putting links in the chat to links for registering to all those session types. We have more, we have a knowledge base. I have office hours on Thursdays from 4 Central Time to 4:30 Central Time. I just am on Zoom and anybody can jump on and ask me questions. So if you're stuck, you need a thought partner, you just want to ask me something, feel free to jump on that. And we have a Slack channel where we communicate and ask, technical questions, other kinds of questions. So Kara has put links to all of those in the chat, and she will also follow up this session in a couple days with an email with all of these links as well. So don't feel like you have to retain any of that now, but just know that we're here and you can always reach out to us. And so today's deep dive conversation, Jim Best is going to share a theory of change that he sort of invited me in to have a conversation about, and we've been going back and forth about, and he's been drawing graphics and we've been thinking it through. So he's going to share it with you, and hopefully you all will help us make it even better. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to hand it over to Jim, and I'm going to participate like a normal person for a while.
You can see my screen?
Yes.
Yay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Christine. Yeah, that intro of, Christine's put out a vision, and we've been, as a community, sort of augmenting, creating, helping with that vision over the last couple of years. And it's exciting, and I don't always get it, but intuitively, I know there's huge value in using social system maps for system change. So wanting to articulate that, I'm a graphics, high level, gotta have a diagram kind of person. So I've been sort of struggling with that. And this was an opportunity to have that conversation with Christine, and now with you. It's an ongoing conversation, but I've needed that overview to see where the parts fit and hold together and how they work with each other. And I've also had difficulty explaining my excitement around it and why I think this is important to other people. And maybe some of you have that same issue. I know Cindy and I have talked about this in her communities, and Ben, and anyway. So there's a need to see how it fits together and to be able to talk about this. So that's what this attempt is. What else was I going to say about it? So I'm going to show a couple of slides here, and don't worry about the words on the left of this. This is just slides that you can get later, and we're going to just sort of walk through this. But this diagram is sort of, and sorry about this egghead diagram. Look, there's a bunch of eggs here. I never noticed that before. So these are not the kind of diagrams that are super engaging, but that's sort of, unfortunately, the way my brain works. So we're going to get to this right here. What else? Anything else about that? Yeah, I want to make one other distinction, that this is a theory of change about how social system mapping works with, can help in systems change of complex adaptive systems. But that's one theory of change, but each of us has theories of change about the system that we're in or the system that we're trying to change and how that works, independent of this business about social system maps. Like, if I think relationships are so important for the flow of information, then that's my theory of change. And if I make changes in the relationships, if they're more loving or more empathetic or more actionable or something, then I think good things are going to happen in my complex adaptive system that I'm in, the community that I'm trying to change. That's my personal theory of change, and there might be, our whole community might have a theory of change about how we get things done. But those are two different things. And one of the things I wanted to do was to be able to use the theory of change about social system mapping to help people execute their particular theories of change, which are different from group to group. So hope that, keep those separate in mind. All right, oops, I never started the timer. I hate that, doggone it. So let's just start out with some assumptions. We're talking about complex adaptive systems here. They're biological organisms with the social part being the people that are part of them. And they're volatile, they're uncertain, they're complex, they're ambiguous, and they're resistant to change. They have interactions that are happening between the entities and the parts, and that creates patterns, emergent patterns at the larger level, and those patterns reinforce the interactions at the lower level, and it's very resistant to change. And yet, a lot of us are trying to poke those systems and change them. Okay, so the lot of us are the small groups within any community, part of an intentional community complex adaptive social system. And we sense those patterns and we make theories about how they're going to change, and we act and we poke at the system. And that's the basic loop that we use. But there's a more powerful way to do that, and it's to be explicit about how we sense the system, what's happening out there, what we make of it. So what does that mean? And now what do we do about it? That what, so what, now what is the adaptive action cycle that Glenda Young talks about, and lots of other people, and we do it unconsciously. And having some guidance or a plan of what we're going to do is one thing, but then we actually have to execute it, and that's left to the small groups to execute it. So that's the whole cycle of system change. And the idea is to come up with a theory of change, make some poke at the system, see what happens, and do another experiment. And ultimately our theories of change evolve as we learn about the system. And we are focused on trying to poke at it in ways that create effective changes in the pattern. We try to do thousands, lots of iterative small experiments. Okay, so that's the basic setup. And I am asking for clarifications at this point. And also you can put in the chat questions, but also ultimately, what are you curious about in what I've put out so far? And we'll just take a couple of minutes here. I wonder if I should be stopping to share so I can see the chat better. I think I'm gonna stop sharing so I can see the chat, but come off mute. We're a small group. Just jump in, no lurking. What's on the top of mind for you?
Jim, I was actually going to ask you if you could put your screen back up and go back to the diagram just for a second.
Okay. Kara, maybe you could share the slide link also. If people...
Or yeah, just so I can look at it a little bit better and take it in.
Jim, do you want me to share it so you can see the chat for now?
Yeah, that would be great. Does that actually help? Yeah, thank you. Which diagram? The full diagram? Or
yeah, I just, yeah, like that. Yeah.
This one?
Okay. Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay. Yep.
Because we are going to go back and fill in the other bubbles.
Okay, okay.
We're partway there.
It's probably a good idea for Kara to put the link to the whole thing for the discussion anyway. Yeah. We'll need that diagram.
I hate to be entrained by a presenter's slide as opposed to being able to go back and forward myself while they're talking, but
yeah.
Denise, did you have a thought about it or a question that you were?
I just wanted to like take it in. I think I wasn't paying enough attention when you were talking for the question. So I just want to like look at it quickly and then I'd be able to formulate a curiosity. It was just.
Oops.
Trying to understand like the acronyms for like, there's a lot of things. I was just trying to understand like the adaptive system first and then the adaptive action cycle. So I'm just trying to, it was just a lot for me to take in right now. So I'm just trying to understand one part at a time. So I was studying the text rather than looking at the diagram, and then, but I'm sure other people have questions.
No, everybody's got that thought.
Okay.
I apologize for throwing so much at it. So Reiner, you're jumping ahead, mediators. Yeah, we're going to get to that in a second, but the adaptive action cycle is just, you know, that thing that Glenda puts out saying, what, so what, now what, that cycle. The mediators are something we'll get to in a second.
The mediators, Jim, are those people or those models and methods? In your,
yeah,
that was a choice.
and Cindy's talking about, you know, when you get to the now what part, that in my mind, that's just a plan. You know, you go like, what's happening out there? What does that mean? Now, what do we do about it? And that's just a plan. So then you actually have to act on it. So if you're from a participatory, an academic space where you're doing participatory action research, you know, you observe, reflect, plan, act in a cycle. And in my mind, the adaptive action cycle doesn't actually have an action associated with it. So I've separated. Mary asking about individual mindsets in our eggheads. That's what Reiner's referring to. Those mediators. We're going to talk about that in a second. You're way ahead of us. This is perfect. Why doesn't everyone, like Mary says, be responsible instead of a small group? You know, I'm using small group in this scalable way. Small group could be me talking to myself. It could be you and me acting together. It could be the 7 of us, the 8 of us on this call in a small group, creating a collective consciousness. The community of practice in this case, for this social system mapping community of practice is, you know, a couple hundred people or dozens and dozens and dozens of people. They're not all here. That community could move forward as a group, as an engine of change, a collective consciousness about how we think. So I think it operates at all scales. Yeah.
Can I just add, so I don't think that 200 people do anything together. I mean, except for show up to a large event once in a while, or maybe communicate in small groups in a Slack or something like that. But in fact, in an ecosystem, we're not all going to be doing the same thing, and we're not all going to be doing it the same way. And so whatever plan we take, we're going to break it down into this group is going to work on that, this group is going to work on that, this group is going to work on that. And so there can be dozens and dozens of small groups doing things, but we don't actually build relationships in groups of more than a few people. If we get 10 people, what we end up getting is jockeying for position and attention. It's very hard to be building unless we just focus on the relationships and don't focus on getting any work done. So there's this tension between what's the size that's both great for learning how to work together and accomplishing things together, as well as building a relationship. And it's not the whole network. It's parts of the network, and then that spreads and different parts connect. So that's why a map has these different various clusters. We're not going to get a big, I mean, you know, once in a while there's a protest or something, but that's not the same as what we're talking about here. So we're not all going to do the same thing. And that's part of, for instance, why Mary and I have been working on these roles, informal roles question in our updating of the map, because we all want to do something different. I don't particularly want to do several of the things other people want to do. I want to do certain kinds of things, and probably most people don't want to do what I want to do. So we can't try to all do it together. It's not productive or generative or relationship building. I'm stopping now, Jim.
It also makes me think, though, that there are some things at the collective level, like our culture,
yeah,
which isn't held totally collectively, especially as new people come in. but I think there are some things that operate at the different scales. So
yeah,
like culture is one of those things that is.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm not saying, yeah, absolutely. I just think we need to think of all the scales all the time. Yeah.
Absolutely. And let's see, Brian, you had in there, your embedding cast seems there should be a larger entrenched cast to which it belongs. Yeah, I think embedding cast is, again, another one of those scale things. Where any cast is many things and it's embedded in many things. And I'm just, I've got a lot of eggs already in this diagram. So that's sort of standing in for all of those possibilities. We should move on, but let me see if there's Brian also here.
Jim, can I just take one little quick?
Yeah.
I did not mean to be insulting when I said egghead, and I'm wondering if I'm sensing
I'm loving it.
Okay, well, because you're focusing on it, and I was wondering if I was sensing a little defensiveness, like, oh, that was a criticism, no. And then I was feeling like, oh, I didn't really. So no, I'm a big egghead, so it wasn't a criticism. It's just like it's one perspective. That,
that's probably why I've had the shades in that trying to break the egghead. Okay.
Well, I didn't mean to be insulting at all. So no, that hurt.
I feel honored. Seriously, I'll just say.
Okay. I'm sharing. Do you want me to stop?
Ben's got a, there's a lot of good stuff in here, but I want to move on.
Yeah.
And maybe we come back to this there's a lot of good stuff in here. Running gag in this small circle. Okay, here we go. So let's see, sharing my screen. Actually, you can share, continue sharing. Why don't you flip through, Christine, to where we.
Is that here? Got it?
Keep going.
Oh, I see.
Keep going. Keep going.
Okay.
Okay, that's where we were. And now the next slide. So now we're adding the social system map to the mix. And basically what we're doing with this tool is it is an abstraction. It's a spotlight on the massive complexity of the complex adaptive social system. We get stories and other artifacts that help us sense what's going on in the system. But now we've got this social system map that very specifically spotlights certain relationships, certain qualities of the entities, of the people that are in there, whatever we want, not whatever we want, but a lot of things, maybe the exchanges between people, between entities and so forth. But we have this tool that's now adding to our ability to sense what's going on in the systems that we're interested in. And as a small group, we can act to change that social system map, to change the tool based on our theories of change, what we think is important. What are we going to highlight? So there's an iterative cycle going on there of where we're changing that. And we change that map and we ask people to engage so that that map is continually being updated. It's dynamic and it's owned by the small groups of the complex adaptive system. It's owned by the people for the people that it's affecting. And this is a cultural difference, right? It starts to unravel systems of domination and replace it with systems of connection and reverence and regeneration. Okay, you can go to the next one.
Did I?
So now we've got a bubble.
I'm lost, I'm sorry.
A light, no, that was it.
This is it? Or
yeah, we just added the mediator egg around the adaptive action cycle egg. And the mediators, this is really important that we bring filters, we bring biases, we bring our own theories of change, we bring our culture, the culture of the group, and that mediates how we do the adaptive action cycle work. It mediates what questions we ask, what we think is important, and so forth. It holds our theories of change, both in the small groups and in the larger groups. And this is also the place where you can say, yeah, the some of the underlying assumptions and community agreements have is that these are about systems of connection, not about systems of dominance, because maps have often been used to dominate and colonize spaces. And we're saying, no, that's actually not the lens that we're going to bring into the changes that we want. Okay, last one, Christine. And so there's a bubble around the small groups about how we do this work. What social technologies do we use to act upon the communities that we're in and the communities that we're trying to change? And, you know, if you've got blunt tools here, you do blunt work. You know, we might use all sorts of facilitation techniques when we get together as a group. We might use circle process to build relationship, because that's part of our theory of change, that building relationships is super important. We might highlight the resources that we bring to any systems change work, and the resources that need to flow within a complex adaptive system to achieve our purposes. We might use liberating structures to create involvement of, you know, bring every voice to the table. We might use network weaving techniques to connect people and create more more connection within the complex system. So depending upon the richness of the social technologies that we have to affect change, affects, you know, how effective we can be there. So that's it. Those are all the pieces. And maybe we're missing some pieces here. We keep finding things that, oh, what about this? What about that? So back to you. You can flip to the next prompts there, Christine. But again, the same questions. What was confusing, ambiguous about that? And what are you becoming, mostly what are you becoming curious about?
I'm going to go back to the, I'm going to go back up to the, I want that diagram on the screen.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Thanks. Because I needed to look at it.
Yeah.
Sorry. One of the things I'm working on right now is a practice profile around some of this kind of work that I'm doing it like in community, and how we're, you know, and some of it is how we're using, you know, mapping as a way of building adaptive capacity. And I dropped in kind of a definition of what the working definition that I'm using that actually comes out of the field of preparedness for environmental and natural disasters. And yeah, and so like one of that, the arrow going back to the mediators in the adaptive action cycle, I guess there's something that happens in the interaction between the social systems map and visual, kind of visual learning that it's, I think I've seen, observed, kind of builds that, the ability for groups to, that small group to see the system. And I think I think this is what you're saying. So I'm just sort of reflecting back that I think I'm kind of getting it a little bit. So, but that, you know, so that as a tool, you know, is one part of that. And I'm curious and wondering about what are the other tools and other parts of it as well.
You know, just to comment on that, thanks for your definition up in the chat there of how you're talking about adaptive capacity. And the sense I get, maybe I don't understand completely, but the sense I get is about the adaptive capacity of the community to outside changes. And one of the things that, another aspect of adaptation is we bring a lot of tensions and differences within the containers that we have. What is our ability to co-adapt to each other, either group-wise or individually or conceptually or whatever, but the ability to, our capacity to listen, learn, change, and fit with each other as people offer difference. You know, so that capacity to co-adapt at every scale, super important.
Yeah, and adaptation, you know, being able to use known things for different purposes. Also really critical piece too as well.
You know, let me just throw out a process thing. I was going to have 2 10-minute breakout sessions after this, but I think we'll just have one, and that'll give us another 8 minutes to just work on what we've produced here so far together. 8 minutes will take us to 45, 55, yeah. So let's just, because there's so much stuff in the chat coming on. What else? Let's see. Anybody can jump in.
Jim, I'm wondering about people like me who is a disruptor. Where do they fit in this? I think people won't change unless there's disruption.
Can you mute Cindy, please?
Oh.
What?
I'm joking.
Okay.
Sorry.
I thought you heard something in the background.
Whoa! What's your problem, dude?
I'm like, this is all great for Jim, but I don't know. I don't see me in here.
I couldn't resist.
I think what I want to share a thing that I just saw in this diagram. I've looked at this diagram and had many conversations. But I just saw a thing, and Cindy, I think it partly addresses what you're getting at with the disruptors.
Yeah.
So there's this, and can you see my screen still? Okay, so there's all this stuff, but every time I look at it, I'm like, it's not clear to me from this diagram how a social system map makes a difference. Like I just keep saying, I know it's on there as a blob, but I'm not really getting by the thing how it's relevant, how it's adding to the process. But I wasn't really thinking of mediators the same way you were. And when you described mediators just now, it sounded more like the mediators are perspectives or worldviews or mindset. I mean, they are perspectives and worldviews and mindsets with intentionality in this context around the larger cast, but they're different ways of seeing, and that without that mediator bubble, which came on when comes on with sort of more closer in time to the social system map. If you're just doing the adaptive action cycle sort of unconsciously and you're just sort of running your small groups trying to make change, but you're not actually taking the time to step back and reflect and to hear all those different mediators that are actually present, your social technology is going to just keep repeating the same old things, because it's not, I mean, you may have some great social technologies in there, but you can amplify the effectiveness of the social technology by growing your awareness of the mediators that are in the room. And that's what I just saw is in the social system map helps you see the mediators in the space in a way that just talking, not to disrespect talking, but it's hard to really get that step back in that moment to moment, person to person, small scale, our present space interface. We need to be able to step back. And if we build our map correctly, then we can see what other mediators are here. What's here that's a resource, what's here that's a warning, what's here that is outside of my habitual mindset, and start to figure out then how do we, once we understand our mediators more, then how do we shift our social technology in ways that make those small groups more effective. So that's kind of what I just saw. And I don't know if that helps Cindy or not, but it feels like the disruptors are actually in the mediator space, and we can see them in a moment, in a small way, as an annoyance, or we can actually step back and observe the whole system and say, oh yeah, there's a whole lot of that we're just not listening to, or we're not seeing, or we're not paying attention. It's in our blind spot. Jim, did that kind
of? I love that. I don't know if that helps Cindy at all, but that's an interesting place to put Cindy. I mean, I'm just saying that.
That's right.
What you're representing there is the tension of a difference, and holding that tension in the mediator, but also reflecting on it to become aware of it, as Christine says, and using the map to help become aware of it. Because the blind spots are, they're killers, you know, white privilege for me.
And
Male.
so also the early adapters and all the other parts of a system that's working would all be in that mediator thing. I'd like to see a bigger little description of the mediators as
Yeah.
you know, parts of a system. What does a system look like? And then maybe we can, you know, yeah.
And Christine, your comment about, because I do visualize, when that gray bubble social system map up there, I've got some images there of an abstraction, of a spotlight, of seeing parts of this complex whole, you know, that's all going in my mind, but it's just a gray bubble here. And I am curious, well, it would be interesting to see what other people see in that gray bubble, but to make it more explicit would be a good challenge. Ben's got a question there, or is mapping a form of acting in this model or of only sensing? What are you thinking, Ben? I think I follow you, but say more about that if you would.
The language that you're using is, you know, spotlight and lens, that it's a way of looking at the system. And then once you look at the system and you do some sense making, you might then decide to take some actions. But the mapping itself, I'm not hearing you present as a form of acting on the system. And, you know, in many of the use cases that I'm involved with, I would characterize it that way. For example, helping people self-organize around different activities and groups. Request help, make offers. I mean, those are in the standard map too.
Yeah, and the prompts that we put, the questions that we use create individual reflection and sometimes individual transformation. When you answer those questions, you go like, whoa. I mean, if a particularly powerful prompt.
Right, which I guess points to another level of this, which is that there's looking at the whole map and trying to understand the system, but there's also, you know, the minute individual scale of this and all of the care that's going into answering all the questions on the map in many cases, how much value there is in the personal data and in the personal connections. You know, so the map is a way of being inside the system and acting systemically in that way. And I'm not sure how that comes out in all of this. I think it relates to the idea that mapping is a form of action in many cases, not just a way to get a picture of what we've got, then change it and see if the picture changes.
Excellent.
I'm right on that, Ben. That's awesome, because that's what I was saying earlier. Everybody needs to be responsible to act, and acting in the map, not just little small groups say, okay, now we're in charge of the map and we're going to do anything. That part of it, but on action, everybody should be doing something because of the conversation or whatever it was that happened. And so that it's more flat, not hierarchical.
Another process intervention here. I think, as much as I hate to do this, I want to blow off all the breakouts and just continue this conversation. You know, I am a breakout advocate because we build relationships differently in small groups of triads than we do. But let's just go with this. This is really rich. How about people that haven't verbally offered anything that feel comfortable doing that? Just come off mute and jump in.
For me, it's quite interesting. This disruption thing could be a first step. Moderators getting in contact with groups who are interested to get an insight about their own patterns and interactions and get this perspective Ben was talking about from the outside, and then they start to work on it if it's making sense for them as well, and not only for the people who are looking from the outside into or on this system. And that starts a working group there, or could be seen then that the social system map is a part of the green bubble of the social technologies that get applied by the people who are interested to use it for themselves within the patterns and interactions bubble. So it's like a proposal. So that came up for me at the moment there. Thanks. And very
Rainer,
rich, this discussion.
Are you saying that, so part of the social technology bubble is one, using the map, but also having conversations like these? I may have lost the thread.
Yes, so you have several steps. I have the picture that the people of the small group haven't come across this work of social system mapping, or they, it's my situation, probably I'm taking as a model. I wouldn't be capable of handling social system mapping and moderating the adaptive action cycle on my own at the moment. But probably I'll get a bigger group for whom this could be a worthwhile enterprise to start that. So the first step would either be asking someone outside of my bubble of people with whom I am in a working context, and ask for the mediators and those people who are more capable of social system mapping than I am to make a first picture or help us making a first picture. And then in following steps, we will work on this first proposal and make it more and more our own from the inner perspectives of our being in this situation, and probably like parents can let go their children as they grow in age in ever more free dimensions. So yeah, that's my picture.
Thank you. Got about 6 minutes left. Anybody who hasn't spoken?
So Jim, is it possible, I'm just, within like the kind of Black ecosystem that we're working with, and even for myself, the idea of networks and network theory and network thinking is relatively new. And so I'm trying to put on my hat. And if I were to present this map as is in speaking to the value of the social system map, where would I start? Like could you use like a practical example of a group and how to explain the map? Like, so is it, I can't remember who's just the gentleman that was just speaking, like, is it about that we would start with, okay, here we have a group of people together to talk about an issue, let's just say suspension in the education system, just using that as an example of Black students. And then we build out a social systems map to find out the relationships of everybody who's working on this particular issue. And then I guess I'm kind of a little bit lost with when, like, if I'm explaining this to someone in just regular language, not with the fancy like words, just with the slides, then what is it that I'm trying to show people who are part of my group, or who am I presenting this map to? I guess it's kind of a far more basic question in terms of this diagram, I'm sorry, that you have here. And if maybe I could walk it through, I just kind of think I need like a practical example. It just seems like really up there for me. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think you're just talking about how does the gray bubble really help inform the community that you're working with.
Right. If I were to use this actual with the blue eggs, the green eggs, and the yellow eggs, and I see the arrows, but conceptually it's not, I don't feel I would be confident enough to like explain to someone this is a way that this could work.
I think this is really at a different level. I think that in that case, you're really showing the map of the people and the relationships and how they responded to the survey, and looking at that. And, you know, the value proposition there is, you know, either focused on people knowing each other in a larger group than, you know, a larger network horizon. Now you can see all those people, you know, dozens and dozens and dozens of people in that community, if that's important, where you couldn't before, or you're seeing specific relationships between people around the issue of suspensions. You know, I think that's the practical stuff. So this is really just as practitioners, how do we think about, but Christine, did you have an orienting?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, and just to be for transparency, when Jim wanted to do this, I was like, whatever, okay, I'll do it. But I was not psyched about the idea, because I didn't think it was necessary or would necessarily be useful. As we've done this, I have found a lot of use in it. So I'm glad that I was just open to exploring with Jim. But I think that this is a way for practitioners to like internalize where the value lies, and for us to have a sense of how to talk to it. But I would not use this unless I were speaking to, so I think the only people who this might be useful for early as an introduction would be decision makers. So if there's someone you're trying to convince to do the map and they have a little bit of systemic insight, or, you know, understanding that things are complex and we need to shift how we handle complexity, being able to talk this through for them might be valuable. But for an actual community group, I start in a very different place. I don't start in theory land at all. I start in, what do you want to be together? What does it feel like to be a network, and have do post-its and so I start in their vision rather than in a social system map. And so part of it is learning when and where is the right framework and the right questions and the right way to discuss it. But I think this is more for us to get clear in our own minds about what we're proposing, because we get all kinds of objections that most of us, it's taken me years to know how to handle. Like, oh, I see your concern and I know how to put it together because I have a picture in my own mind of where the value lies and why we might do this. So if someone's not seeing it, I can help them see it better when I'm more clear about it myself. Most of us have a very intuitive sense and have not historically been super articulate in expressing it. So I think this helps us do that more than.
Yeah, thanks. No, I think just the simple point of the intended audience is it even clarifies the way that I'm looking at it. And I might have missed it in the beginning of the presentation, but I was just trying to understand who this is for. And you both made that very clear. So it's extremely helpful. Thank you.
I don't think Jim and I really were clear about that until you asked that question. So, emergence. At least I wasn't. I'm shutting up now, Jim.
I'm noticing it's 5 minutes to the top of the hour, and you wanted 5 minutes at the end to close. I thank you so much for all this richness. There's still stuff in the chat that's, you know, to be harvested and explored and stuff. And if you are up for doing that in the half hour after, you know, it would be great to do that. Sorry, we haven't been able to get to all of this, but very rich. Thank you.
Yeah, I've been really thrilled with the chat, because I can see places where we can tweak this and make it even better. So we will practice what we preach, which is actually use the input and iterate. So,
and if you want to join in actively messing with this, please reach out to me.
Yeah, if you want to have more discussion with it. So we're going to shift. You ready, Jim?
Yeah.
Okay. We don't do that. We did that. Hang on. We didn't do, hang on a second. We didn't do any of that stuff, but I'm going to zip through.
Just keep going.
I am. Okay. So I have some small invitations, and I'm a little awkward about certain things, and this is the first time I've done this, but I would really like us to start having little rituals that remind us that we are a system and that you are part of this system, and you can increasingly have agency within this system. We're sort of putting a bunch of things in place that make that possible. But for starters, for right now, there are things that I'm always looking for, one of which is if someone has a social system map that they can share with an on-ramp, please let me know, because I'm always looking for who's got a social system map. And we've got like a handful that we just keep cycling through, and it's fine because you know, there's new people and they haven't seen it before. But if you've got another one that we haven't seen, or one that we haven't seen for a while and would be willing to share that, please let me know. That would be very helpful for me. If there's a deep dive topic that you would like to co-host with someone who's already part of this, you know, like sort of has a sense of the vision and the culture that we're trying to generate. If there's a topic you'd like to dig into, either to suggest it or to host it, be part of presenting it yourself, please let me or Jim or Mary know. Another thing is we have started gathering, this came from trying to figure out how to iterate our map in a collective, transparent way. We started giving people a place to input suggestions for changes to the map or other changes to the community of practice, just ideas that you have. It doesn't have to be something I want to run with right now, but it can just be something that you think we should do. And Kara should be putting a link in the, she put a link in the chat called the Harvest Basket. This is where we will collect your ideas. And at some point, as we sort of generate a little more structure, we will start acting on those in various ways and get back in touch with you if your name is on the Harvest Basket card. And then I wanted to ask for a short story, and this took longer than I thought it would. So maybe what I'll ask for, let's do this. If someone has a short story that they would like to share, not today, not in the next half hour, put it in the chat, and so one of us will follow up with you and do a brief interview of your short story, or just be prepared to share it in another session when you come back. Or if you want to share it, if you're going to stick around for the informal half hour and are willing to share a quick success story or win in the informal half hour, do that. So those are the three options. Now we're to the top of the hour, and we will do our little goodbye ritual, which is, so if you're, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I should have probably stopped a while ago. Where is that? Okay, so for the goodbye ritual, we will all unmute. And a reminder, if you want to stick around for the extra half hour, just don't jump off after the goodbye ritual, but I'm going to count down 3, 2, 1. And then as soon as I get to 1, we'll just all give each other our blessings and our love for the day. So you want to do this, unmute, 3, 2, 1. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Have a
Lovely
day
day.
or evening. Love, love. Bye. Thank you.